My name is Chu Machinye, and I am your family lawyer. Of the many cultural biases against widows, there is one that sticks out like a sore thumb, and I think we should talk about it now. It is a concept of the levirate marriage. Remember, I mentioned this earlier on, and it sounds like Latin. It is not Latin, it is English language, and it is something that is practiced in a number of Nigerian communities. The levirate marriage is a traditional practice in some cultures, including certain Nigerian ethnic groups, where a widow is compelled to get married to her late husband's brother or a close relative in order to maintain family ties, to be protected, and to retain access to a portion of her husband's property and for social status in the community. It's a portion because the man coming in to marry her will take the greater part of that estate. Why is this done? Why is this practiced? One of the arguments those who are practice it advance for this is that it helps family preservation. It aims to preserve family ties, property, and social status of the widow. It also says that the practice is seen as a way to protect the widow and her children from social isolation and from economic hardship, and to protect her from the consequence of her husband's death, which is that if she doesn't do it, she's lost. Once the husband dies, she has lost right to her husband's property. The only way she might reclaim it is to marry the brother. In some cases, the widow's consent may not even be required at all. Well, in some others, it may be put to her as a choice. You want to do this or you want to go. If you don't accept it, then you have to leave the family. The widow is typically married to her late husband's brother or close relative, even the one that she doesn't fancy at all. The implications of the levirate marriage raises concern about the woman's rights, her autonomy, freedoms, and dignity as a human person. Conversely, it may be argued that the practice holds cultural and traditional significance, reflecting the importance of family and community ties. It may be argued, I said. I didn't say that I agree with it. Now, in Nigerian context, the levirate marriage is practiced in some ethnic groups, including some parts of Igbo land, Benin, and Yoruba communities, ostensibly, as I've said, to maintain family ties and allow the woman access to her husband's property. Other ethnic groups in Nigeria may also practice the levirate marriage, of course with variations in customs and traditions. It may not be exactly as the way I've defined it, but the practice essentially is the same. Let's take a few moments to look at the modern perspective. The levirate marriage can be seen as conflicting with modern human rights principles, particularly regarding women's rights. The issue of autonomy as an individual and consent are primary in this consideration. As the Nigerian society evolves, attitudes towards levirate marriage are changing, with some arguing for greater emphasis on individual rights and autonomy, and the right of a widow to decide first whether she wants to remarry, and then secondly, who she should get married to after her husband's passing. In my humble view, the levirate marriage is an antiquated, almost punitive practice that does not add any value to the cultural and traditional practices of certain Nigerian ethnic groups. Nevertheless, understanding its implications and significance can help promote greater awareness and respect for cultural diversity. Let me place a caveat. I hold this view only insofar as the practitioners of such culture unconditionally recognize and accept the right of the widow to choose whether or not she's desirous of remarrying and to choose a husband by herself. If she fancies her late husband's relative as her new boo after her husband's death, the law permits her to marry him. After all, marriage is only until death. So when the husband has died, The woman is as good as a virgin. She could get married again. But whilst uncle transmutes to daddy, the widow's inheritance rights should on no account be tied to her acceptance of her late husband's family member as a replacement for her husband. I hope that my words are clear. I hope that they are understood. Because if we continue to do otherwise, we're winding the clock backwards towards pre-colonial times. The concept of the levirate marriage, where a widow is married to her late husband's brother or close relative, actually raises questions about its compatibility with the Nigerian Constitution and the principles of natural justice, equity, and good conscience. We are aware that the Nigerian Constitution guarantees the right to dignity of the human person and the right to freedom of association, and these may be compromised by the practice of levirate marriage. Of course, there is a right to freedom from discrimination and freedom of association. These are very clear rights entrenched, enshrined in our Constitution for the benefit of all of Nigerians, including women. The Constitution clearly prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex. So why do you force a woman to marry a man she doesn't want? Simply because she wants, if she doesn't do it, she will be asked to leave the family and leave without the husband's assets, which she may have labored with him to build over the years. This calls for reforms of the laws and policies that may help promote greater equality in inheritance practices. Let us all join in raising awareness and promoting education about women's rights and inheritance, because this will help to challenge discriminatory practices. This will help to provide support and resources for women and widows who are excluded from inheritance, and it will help to mitigate the consequences of exclusion. By addressing the exclusion of women and widows from inheritance, we can work together towards promoting greater equality and justice in inheritance practices across Nigeria. This is the purpose of this episode. It's a call to action, a clarion call. But let me, as I do often in this program, show you what our courts have said about some of these practices and when issues arose. The family of Mojeku was involved in one of such matters. It was decided in 1997. Mr. Lazarus Mojeku died intestate, leaving behind wife, children, including a female child. And he also left behind a property in Nnewi in Anambra State. His cousin claimed the property based on Nnewi customary law of Odio, I hope I pronounced this well, which says that if a man dies without a male child, his nearest male relative inherits the property, not the widow, not the daughters. The aggrieved widow and daughter challenged this custom. The matter dragged from the High Court up to the Court of Appeal, which ruled in favor of the widow and the daughter. Justice Nikki Toby of the Court of Appeal, as he then was, famously held that any customary law that discriminates against women and denies them inheritance rights is repugnant to natural justice, equity, and good conscience. In his exact words, any form of societal discrimination on grounds of sex, apart from being unconstitutional, is antithetical to a society built on the tenets of democracy. I can say clearly that this case marked a turning point in the fight against discriminatory customs, because a lot of other decisions have now followed this. And I think that we're in the right direction. How we might get there. In yet another matter, Mrs. Loimoike's husband died intestate. His brother tried to evict her from her home in Enugu, claiming that under customary law, she could not, as a woman, inherit landed property. The husband's brothers argued that only female members of the family could own or inherit landed property within their family compound. The question was, is a woman or a widow entitled to inherit or remain in her matrimonial home under customary law. As you would expect, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Mrs. Nweke. The court held that any culture that denies women the right to inheritance of their deceased husband is discriminatory and unconstitutional, and of course, null, void, and of no effect whatsoever. This is clearly showing that customary law would always yield to constitutional rights, particularly the right to freedom from discrimination. So let's be clear that cultural practices should not and cannot override the constitutional right to equality, to fairness, to equity, and to good conscience. You know that in spite of what we're saying, in spite of what the courts have said, these practices continue, and they continue because women are not empowered to go to court to challenge. And even when you've gone to court and you challenge, it takes sometimes a lifetime to go through the process from the High Court or customary court to the Supreme Court. Our call, therefore, is that all of us should rise and begin to make changes to stop these practices. Let me put it this way. Discriminatory practices like denying women inheritance or forcing leveraged marriage on them are not legally enforceable. However, many families still follow this outdated custom. The question is why? And the answer is, of course, first is social pressure. Second is fear of angering the ancestors or the community leaders. The other is ignorance on the part of women. And then, of course, there is the fact that they are not enabled, empowered to rise up, and they don't have the knowledge of what I'm telling you right now. But as we know, custom is not static. If the custom has become unjust, then we need to say it is now unjust. It is no longer acceptable. This one is unjust. We need to rise up and protect our daughters and our widows. Some people might say what I'm saying doesn't align with their culture, doesn't align with their religion. But when culture or religion is such that it offends common sense in the 21st century, then we must say so, just like I'm saying so. Join in saying so. Share this message. Talk to somebody who needs to know. And as you share this message, tell them that there are ways to avoid this pitfall. Tell your neighbor that he could make a will so that he will take his estate outside of custom, and be that the law will protect that which he wants to happen to his wife and children after he's gone. And this can be done through a valid will. Discuss succession early with open conversations. Make known to your spouse, to your brothers, and to your sisters, to your community elders what you want to happen to your wife and children after you are dead. Then educate your family members, especially the elders, the community leaders, about the rights of women. And when it gets out of hand, challenge these discriminatory customs through available legal remedies. Talk to a family lawyer. Go to court if needs be. If mediation doesn't work, go to court. But at all times, involve family lawyers in planning your succession, because the practice of doing it yourself often leaves your inheritance arrangements in disarray. Let me leave you with this quote from Proverbs chapter 31, verses 8 to 9. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Defend the rights of the poor and the needy. Inheritance justice is not just a legal issue, it's a moral one. Let us all build families and societies that treat our daughters and wives not as second-class citizens, but as full heirs of dignity, entitled in full measure to inherit property, just as we the men are. After all, the Bible says that we're joint heirs in the kingdom of God. And since we often pray the Lord's Prayer, calling on God's kingdom to come, let us jointly enjoy his earthly gifts of money and properties whilst we are here. It's my sincere hope that it serves as a clarion call for us all to do right by our daughters, our mothers, and our wives. Do not forget to click the subscribe button and then turn on your notification bells so that you can watch more interesting and more useful episodes in time to come. If you need legal consultations or advice, please place a call today by dialing the number on your screen or send us a WhatsApp message. Until next Saturday, when we bring you another interesting episode of Your Family Lawyer, please remain informed and be empowered. My name is Chuma Chinde, and I am your family lawyer.